Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the next session in the Intelligent Automation World Series. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Rochelle Hood, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chairwoman for this week's event. But on a day-to-day basis, I have the distinct honor of serving as SSON's Global Head of Customer Analytics and Research. I like to think that I'm a little extension of all of you because I came from the practitioner side, and I'm really hoping that what I've brought to this is a program that gives you value, insights, and direct relevance to everyone helping to manage their intelligent automation journey. So let's talk about the day so far. We've had a couple of very interesting sessions today. We've got 7 total for you today, and we're about midway through. So we had a couple of sessions already on how to go from tactical to strategic automation. We went to a deep dive at process excellence, looking at task mining. We then moved on and talked about how to do that automation lifecycle correctly. What are some of the things you need to factor as you move throughout the lifecycle process? And now we're going to go into a very fascinating session talking about process simulations, how to maximize the ROI of your RPA initiatives by eliminating hazards, automation hazards, process analysis reinvented. So I know you're on the edge of your seats for that, but let me just walk you through a couple of quick logistics, and then we'll get right into the material. First of all, in your audience view stream, if you should need any assistance, on the left-hand side of your screen is the Q&A box. You may ask questions there, find out anything you need to know as far as the conference as a whole, or get technical assistance. But really, that's also the box where you're going to engage with our speaker. So if you have things, thoughts to share, feedback to offer, please do that. I'm going to mention that this is going to be a very interactive session. We're going to show you applications. We're going to have you participate in polls. We're really going to get you up and clicking, so be ready for that as well. On the right side of your screen, you're going to see the lovely, warm, welcoming appearance of the photo of our speaker, and also directly below the photo, you'll see social buttons to be able to connect out. Please do that, because inevitably, as soon as you hang up from this, you're like, oh, I wish I would have asked this question. So build those networks now, and then you'll have those resources there when the questions come to mind. And then finally, in the very right-hand side of your screen, there's a resource center. We'd like to refer to this as a digital gift bag. It's your chance to get some good stuff for free to take with you. You may download it now, or when you receive the email with the link to all of the sessions, you can access those details. We've got process mining trends in 2020. I've had to read this. I thought this is very useful. This is one of the highest rated technologies that people are talking about, and the significance and how much it will grow in 2020. All of you shared that as well. I do thank everyone who participated in the profiling questions when you were registering. One result to share with you, we asked you the question, are you using process mining or discovery tools? And 30% of you, just over 30%, said you're considering the use, you're exploring the benefits and how it applies to your organization. And then 29% said you're unfamiliar but eager to learn. So what that said to me is you need a lot of process mining information, and so we're bringing that to you this week. And then 2 other things that you got in that resource center, RPA and process mining, the perfect marriage. How do they go together? And then an overview of some of the tools that we're going to be talking about in this particular session. So do take advantage of those and be able to take those with you, download them now, or when you receive the link to the recording. All right, housekeeping is out of the way. Let's get on to the good stuff. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the digital stage our partner, Minute, who's been with us in all sorts of different arrangements of sharing resources and information, and certainly on the digital stage. We have Roel with us here today, is the Global Implementation Lead. Roel, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the digital stage, and now over to you.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. As stated, my name is Roel Schenk. I'm the Global Implementation Lead within Minit, and I help our customers and partners with the journey of process mining and how to implement it within organizations. And I would love to talk to you a little bit about what process mining is, how it works together with RPA, and how you can leverage these tools to have the best ROI in terms of business process improvement. I'm usually working in a very interactive environment. So if you would have any questions, please use the chat functionality, and I hope to answer your questions either during or after the presentation. Let's start. Just a quick check. Everybody sees my first slide. Rochelle?
Okay, there you go. First slide is up. We're ready to drive away.
Thank you very much. So, my agenda, the things I want to talk about is the goal that we pretty much all have in this industry, what and why we use process mining, which stages there are in a business process improvement project, and why we should use hygienic processes for RPA. Then I'm going to talk about how to implement process mining in an RPA initiative and demo on a sample data set what we can do with process mining RPA in simulations. Then I'll just summarize what I've just told you in this presentation, and hopefully I've covered all your questions. But if you have any questions, I'll answer them afterwards. So what I think the goal is that we all as professionals are trying to achieve is to have successful business process improvement projects. And with business process improvement, we want to analyze improvements of our existing business processes. And we do that by mapping our business processes, identifying inefficiencies, and redesigning the processes that we work with using benchmarking and initial metrics. The godfather of process mining, Professor Wil van der Aalst, also a Dutchman, he has created the whole idea of process mining. And I was given a good idea of a potential customer who said, we want to do process hygiene. I asked him, what is process hygiene? What do you mean with it? And he said, I don't even need to pitch the idea of process mining to my manager. We don't need to have ROI because we need to have hygienic processes in our organization. It's as simple as brushing my teeth. We don't want risks. We don't want any problems in our processes. We want to have an overview about what happens in them, what possible inefficiencies, incompliances can happen in our organization. It is a must-have. We need process hygiene. So just talking about a process. If you would ask a manager or a process expert, he can quickly tell you what the start of a process would be and what the end of a process would be. And I hope this is readable, but how things are designed are, I create an order, I do a delivery, I send my customer an invoice, I get the invoice, and I post it into my financial system. If we talk about these steps, then you can clearly see these red arrows, and of course there is a KPI between order and delivery. And it could be that my manager or the industry wants to lower the lead time between these process steps, and you could perfectly use any BI tool to get insight into these steps to make sure that you can monitor them and create projects to make them more efficient, to lower it to, for example, 4 days. But if you talk to people who actually perform the process, then they tell you that this process doesn't really happen the way you think it does. Sometimes there are deviations in the process. Not as much as there actually are, but more deviations than the design process. So it's the day-to-day perceived reality, and it's fairly efficient, it's standardized, and it's doable, it's performable by the users in this process. But if we talk about how processes are actually performed, then you can see a picture like this. This is a picture that I usually use with an implementation to the management to show all the possible combinations of activities and paths in a process performed by users in the business system. As you can see here on the left, this is how it should be done. Creating an order, doing delivery, invoicing a customer, getting that invoice and posting it into your financial system. But everybody in an organization tries to do the right thing, tries to hurry, do that favor for that colleague, or they all do their best in an organization. But what you actually have and what you get is this overview. And if we look back at that KPI of 4.8 days, it doesn't say anything about my process anymore. Maybe it's way more efficient to root out a lot of these deviations to make sure you have a more standardized process. That's why I show this picture to the management team in advance to tell them this is how complicated the process is that you and your audience work with. With process mining, we can identify these variances. We can find out why they occur, how that happens, and make sure that we root out these inefficiencies and make our process more hygienic. So when talking about processes, I really want to go over the different steps in a process. Higher level, first level is the market to cash process. Pretty much every company, the high level end-to-end process in an organization. When you slice it down, you see that there are multiple processes within that end-to-end process, such as a purchase to pay process. And that purchase to pay process consists of multiple sub-processes, such as requisition, delivery, or invoicing. In these sub-processes, you have activities that are performed by users, such as an invoice approval or a creation of a requisition, a creation of a delivery. But there are also change activities that happen. So I want to change my delivery date, for example, or I want to change the amount of items, or I want to change my material number. All these aspects in a process can be mined within process mining if it's stored within a system, in an ERP system. SAP, Oracle, Infor, Salesforce, for example, all these systems log these actions taken by users in a process. And with process mining, we can get those raw data and we can transform that raw data into activities that happen in a particular sequence. But there are a lot of tasks which are also performed by users, checking an email, checking the appendix of an email to make sure that the contract is right, or the sketch of the article that I'm trying to buy is right. Maybe I want to chat with a colleague on Slack or Skype to make sure I have the right order number. All these tasks are also part of the process, but they are not recorded in these ERP systems. And up until now, we couldn't use them in a process mining project. So we could do processes, we could do sub-processes, we could do the activities in these processes, sub-processes, and we could even get the changes or change activities in these processes. But with the RPA world having a giant boost and having process discovery with RPA tooling, we found a way to add the event logs created in process discovery with RPA tools with the process logs that we get out of these business systems to actually understand what the tasks are users perform during activity in a process or a sub-process. And I'll show you later on in the demo. Right now, we want to poll. We want to know really from you which process it is that you would like to improve in your organization. Please select the right checkbox, and if you have any other process that you would want to mention, please do that in the chat channel. And I'll give you a minute to give your remarks.
And while you're taking the poll question, I just want to let you know that this is a select all that apply. So some of these may be that more than one is something that you'd like to improve. And as Roel mentioned, if there's something in the other area, go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we'll see that coming through and see if there's another big group that perhaps is applicable here. So go ahead and complete that polling, and we'll go ahead and look for the results in just a few more seconds. Okay, it looks like we have a good number of you. I'm going to go ahead and push the results. Looks like, well, we're tied. Purchase to pay and other are tied for the two highest areas that people are looking to improve. So those of you who selected other, if you wouldn't mind sending some of that through in the chat box, it would be great to see what are some of the other prioritized processes for you. And it looks, I see a couple comments of all of it, so probably every single one of those. So maybe we should have had all of the above as one of the choices. Roel, back to you. What are your thoughts on that? Looks like a pretty good spread across processes.
Yeah. So I'm actually pretty happy that people tell me that they want to do all of them, because that essentially is what we're trying to achieve with that process hygiene. We want to have the most important processes in your organization that make sense to do process mining and RPA on, and we want to be in control of all of them. So thank you for that information. Just to elaborate a little bit on my slide regarding processes, sub-processes, tasks, and activities, I've sketched a purchase to pay process, and I would really go through them and explain a little bit what I mean with them and what we can do with our tool. As you can see here, requisitions and quotations, those are sub-processes within the purchase to pay process. So it is possible to look at the requisition process within purchase to pay just by changing the dimensions to look at your process. That same goes for goods received and also for payments. Those are sub-processes that we can achieve within purchase to pay. But usually clients start out with the P2P process to have a good understanding about everything that goes on around there. And then they see that we have problems with payments or problems with requisitions or good receipts. And then we can go and start up a new project, an event log creation to do so. Things that are recorded, for example, in an SAP system, activities-wise, are open contracts or creating a purchase order or approving a purchase order. But after a request for quotation, the tasks that people perform, for example, are opening of Outlook to search for the right quotation to be able to approve, open the appendix to check it, and when you have checked it, then you need to approve a certain purchase order. These are tasks which are performed, which are done outside of the ERP system, and we knew nothing about them before using process discovery features of RPA tooling to add them to process mining event logs. I hope everything is clear regarding, okay, sorry, I saw a question, but it was still related to the Q&A. Thank you. So when talking about a business process improvement initiative, I see these different phases that you go through with process mining. What I mean with it is that you first start out with process selection to gather data to create an event log. And it could be, and I've seen it happen a lot of times, that they wanted to do process mining on a process which wasn't digitalized yet. So the first finding really of the process mining project was that they needed to start up a project to either check the logging in the ERP system to make sure logging was done, or either to digitalize a part of the system to make sure that we would have the information ready to create event logs. Next step in a process mining project is discovery. So actually discovering how you work. I've shown you in advance the way people design a process, the way they perceive a process, and how it actually goes. So showing that process spaghetti is the first step in discovering how unbelievably complex processes can be, but also discovering what it actually means and how much work it is to be done to be compliant, for example, on top of your own compliancy ruling. If we talk about the approval of a requisition, it could be that the document they need to approve is 20 pages long and has all sorts of details. We can use process mining to check if these approvals aren't done within a couple of seconds, because that would mean that they cannot have checked the document and the approval doesn't make any sense. Or if they changed quantities after a certain point in time, or if there was no three-way match, that all is achievable by process mining. Next step in using process mining in a BPI project is to be able to standardize your process according to the way you want it to be standardized, or to standardize the way of working between different countries or different departments, to make sure you have less variance in your process, because the next step will be to optimize and eliminate specific things you don't want to happen in your process. When you've done Lean Six Sigma projects to optimize and eliminate certain things that you don't want to happen in your process, to me, for us, then you start to think about automation. You start to think about automation within the ERP system, maybe integration, but of course also RPA automation. In my next slide, I've added a couple of different use cases that are applicable in these different phases of a BPI project with process mining. So first, identifying root causes, maybe organizational mining, which means understanding how departments work together, doing before and after comparisons, or doing comparisons between our compliant process and the actual process. You see lots of different other use cases that can be used with process mining, but they all point out from top to bottom onto automation, which is what we want to achieve after we've done all the different other aspects of a project. So again, a small summation. If you have multiple unstable, unpredictable, inefficient, ineffective processes, apply these different steps to make sure that the process is ready, and the process is ready to do an RPA project on. We need to have a stable and predictable process with low variation, with low waste, which is robust. And if we have such a process, then we can use RPA to make sure that it's even more effective and more efficient and even has a higher RPA. Unfortunately, what we see with customers is that they've already started out with an RPA project on top of a process which has thousands of variations. And with RPA, you can do a lot of magical things, but that will only happen if you have a stable, predictable process. And people come back to us and say, we've started out with an RPA project, but we've done some things, but it doesn't really work. We don't have the ROI that we are trying to achieve. So we talk to them and we go through the DMAC phases of a project, defining what they want to achieve, having goals, targets, metrics, stakeholders, having a scope, doing the event log creation, validating that, and doing analysis of the data and finding problems, root causes. Then improving it with Lean Six Sigma sort of projects, and monitor that we have stable solutions. And then we start all over again, and we get to a certain page where normal, traditional Lean Six Sigma standardization, optimization projects are not giving the added value anymore. Then we start out with RPA initiatives to make sure that we can make that process more efficient if it's stable. I really want to show you my demo, and I want to talk to you about the process overview that you would get out of a process mining RPA initiative, talk about the different variances that we could get out of this project, look at some statistics, show you the hierarchical process drill down, and quickly show you what simulations can do. So I'm going to share my screen now, and please let me know if it is rendered for you. Rochelle, could you please let me know when it is?
Certainly. It looks like it's just queuing up here, and I think we're about, there we go. It's on the screen. We got the lovely sunset going, so it's back over to you, Roll, for the demonstration.
Thank you very much. So as you can see here, this is our Mine Project Hub, which shows you all the different processes that I have in this project that I created specifically for the demo. And we've got different views that we can save to show our results real quickly. We can add different people who have access to these views and projects to share our findings with business stakeholders or other analysts. When I'm clicking on this, I'm showing you a process that has been executed in a demo system for this purpose, and I show you the way this process is executed, and I can also show you the mean duration between of all the executed cases in this process overview. Took 0.24 seconds in this data set, but the invoice accounting confirmation took 5.78 days. But there is a deviation here, which states check order number, which means this is an activity that has been recorded in the ERP system, but it actually is something that is performed as a task outside of the ERP system. And I would really want to dive into what actually happened. What is the thing, or is the task that this user has been performing within this process? So as you can see here, he has opened up SAP, he's opened up Chrome, he's opened up Skype. I can drill down what actually were the tasks that he performed. So opening up purchase order search, and I'll just quickly expand all to show you everything that we got out of this process. So as you can see here, this line, check order number, starts out with opening up SAP. And then the next thing they do is opening up something which is too technical to read, but that means they do something with amount, they do a search result, they get a list. So we can actually see what the tasks are a user performs during this task, which essentially is finding out what a user does, which could potentially be automated with an RPA tool. So what we do here is we combine a process mining event log with a task mining event log, and we show in a hierarchical manner how and what it is these users in the process are actually doing. What I can also show you is that this process has 61 different variances in how this process is being executed. And 50% of all the executions are done in the most used variant. That doesn't mean that this is the happy flow, but it is the variant which is performed most often. We can go through these variances and find out what the mean duration is, what the actual activities are that happen within this activity, how the coverage is compared to the entire data set, to help us to identify what actually happens and how this occurs. What we can also do is go through our statistics and find out what the mean duration of the entire process is that we are looking at in the filtering right now. What we can also do is look at case duration influence, which means that which attribute in our data set has a higher significance in our lead time. For example, here it means that if the process is in the supplier city Glaba, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, this means that the total duration is 6 days compared to our normal mean duration of 2 days, which means that there is a high significance of this supplier city doing something or having maybe being a root cause issue in process execution. I've already shown you a little bit about the hierarchical process drill down to show because you can imagine that if you have a lot of data that this is not readable anymore, this is why we've added this hierarchical process overview functionality. I think you all are interested in that you could use event logs from process mining and combine them with task mining to identify how and what the users perform in a process. But now I really want to show you a little bit about how we can use simulations to maybe find out if we automate this bit, if that would have significant impact on the lead time of our process. How are we doing in time?
Doing good. We have about 5 more minutes for you to go ahead and finish up, and then we can head to the questions after that.
Okay, no problem. So in here, I've created a view where we have different simulations that we could set up. So as you can see here, I've got different names of my simulations. And yesterday evening, I was working hard to get this presentation ready. Let's look at the first one that I've created. What the system actually does is you can give every simulation a new name. You can give them a fixed distribution of when certain tasks will be simulated. So every 11.52 hours, we do a distribution of instances which come in our simulation. This is derived not from something that I thought of, but from the execution of the actual event log. I've stated that we want to do 1,000 instances of my simulation, starting at a certain scenario, which is also derived from my event log. And we see here all the different teams of people who work on this project. If we look at our BPMN process model, we see that from our event log combined with the event log of the process discovery tool, we can derive a BPMN model of all the different activities and choices that have been performed in our event log. And if we click on it, we can see which resource is allocated to this activity, and we can create a distribution with all the different simulation possibilities that you would want to achieve to create a simulation. We can also edit models to, for example, say, okay, there are a couple of steps here. So starting out with SAP stuff, doing BO item check and so on and so on. I think that we could apply process mining for RPA on this. What will happen to my simulation if I will say, okay, I'll add a new activity and we'll say our process mining RPA bot can do these steps in 5 seconds, for example. That would be pretty interesting to see how that would influence the rest of the lead time of all the different activities that are being performed. So I would want to show you, for example, here, I have created a simulation with a deviation, which means I've created a smaller data set to do my simulation on, and my approval on specific level is my main bottleneck in my process. So I've added a RPA bot who performs these different tasks with a deviation of 1 second. So you can see all these actions are being done more or less within a second. But I see that my bottleneck here is approving on specific level. The simulation I've chosen for this is to improve my, just give me a second. This is what I wanted to show you. So I have that approval on a simulation for 10 seconds, and I've got that approval in a simulation with 15 seconds, and I want to show the difference that makes for my entire lead time. So what we see here is in orange are the overlapping activities performed in simulation A and simulation B. My green activities are the activities that happened for my 10-minute approval, and the blue one is on my specific level. And if I click on this specific activity, I see that my mean duration for my simulation with 10 minutes got down pretty hard compared to my normal simulation where it takes 10 hours, which means I can change the way the event log is being simulated to understand what the difference would be if a certain task will be performed faster. And I can see how that will inflect upon the rest of the execution of my process. So I would want to stop sharing my screen and go over to my PowerPoint, and I want to, can you see my screen?
We see the PowerPoint back.
Okay, and you see the process with the digitization discovery and with the red buttons?
That's correct. Looks like an upside-down funnel.
Okay, so the upside-down funnel, I just quickly wanted to recap that with our tool, we can show the before and after comparison of simulations, but also the before and after comparison between a BPMN model compared to our event level attributes. We want to show you that we can use it to reduce process cycle time to influence and show what influences these cycle times. We can do process simulation and use this tool to improve lead times and to find automation identifications. I really would want to address a couple of questions if there are any.
We do have some questions, and as we're going through the questions, I wanted to let you know I got the feedback that on the poll question, there was an issue where you couldn't select multiple choices. So while we're going through so I fixed that, so we've got real-time problem resolution here. I've fixed that issue and also added the all of the above because several of you wanted to make that comment. So I'm going to reopen the poll so you can vote again or vote if you didn't have a chance, and we'll do that while we're taking the audience questions. I'll leave it up then, and then we'll go ahead and look at the results. So let's jump into a couple of questions already and keep the questions coming in. The first question is, how should I start with my business process improvement project regarding RPA and process mining? Can you kind of give some guidance on the first things to get started, some of the things that is just essential to make sure that you include in any business process improvement project, but especially one that's going to combine RPA and process mining?
Yeah, first of all, it's great that you start to think of how to start out with a business process improvement project, because this is essentially what you would want to achieve. First thing is that you would want to find out which process is key to your business, to make sure that you start out the project with a feasible process. Define a small scope to make sure that you get the ROI necessary to convince your management to broaden the scope of the project. And maybe that will be the best answer, is to start out small with low-hanging fruit. Use process mining to have insights into how you do projects, how you and work on your processes. And from there on, start with eliminating process steps that you don't want to do, to have a more structured way of working where you can work on RPA later on.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The next question, and I know this has been something a lot of folks are wanting to know, is it best only to apply RPA after your process is already efficient? Or is there a certain level of efficiency you should get it to and then apply RPA, or doesn't really matter? Can RPA help you uncover some of the inefficiencies and then help you continue to improve it?
Yeah, so of course, RPA is not the last stop in your business process improvement projects, but it is rather efficient to have an understanding about how your process is being executed, to have a process which has less deviations, to make sure that you don't need to create a really high-tech bot. So RPA can be used in a business process improvement project whenever you want to, but the first step is identifying if you need and where you would need RPA. And that's why you would be able to use process mining to find out any deviations. If you have 70% covered with one variant, and that variant can be executed by an RPA bot, that would be the best way to do business process improvement.
Okay, we only have time for one more quick, short question here. I think this will be an easy one for you to answer. How can I best gain the skills to use this tool? Is there a certification program? Do you offer some kind of training modules? Or what's your guidance on developing the proficiency at using this tool?
Yeah, so when implementing this tool, we really like to work side to side with the people who are going to use this tool. So during the implementation, you'll get onboarding, but we have an academy where you can learn online how to use the features that I've just shown you. And of course, there's also a possibility of training to do when onboarding during an implementation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And if you want to keep going with your resources and learning more about this, you're going to see I've moved the screen back up to the fact that you can reach out to Roel. They're happy to schedule a demo for yourself or your group if you'd like to learn more, or if we started to pique your interest with the information he went through, and maybe you'd like to tailor it specific to your organization. So Roel, thank you very much for your presentation. I want to thank everyone in the audience for their active participation in the poll and joining the session, and also thank those of you who are joining the on-demand version. I'm going to remind everyone that we have those additional resources available for you. They are in the lower right-hand corner of your screen in the Resource Center. If you didn't get a chance to download them already, don't worry, because when you get the link to the recording, you will be able to download them at that time. So next up on our agenda, to let everyone know, in just 15 and a half minutes, we're going to be talking about conversational AI, the next mile of your automation journey. So we do hope you'll join us back for that. And until then, it's my pleasure to thank the entire Minute team, and especially Roel, for bringing us all this information. I wish you all a good day. We hope to see you in the next session, and thank you for participating in the Intelligent Automation World Series. This now concludes this webinar session.